All right. Hello. Welcome to BagWorld, BagTalk, episode 15. We're going to be talking about the BagWorld Index report today, which is really exciting news from us. This is an unprecedented report on the auction market for Hermès bags. We're going to be releasing it in 7 parts for our paying subscribers, and in this episode we're going to be doing a little overview for it so you can get an idea of what we talk about and what we discuss, and giving you some of our little tidbit insights. It's an in-depth analysis of Birkin, Kelly, and Constance auction results for major auction houses through 2017 to 2023. And if you're wondering why we pegged this index to 2017, you'll just have to keep listening to find out. We talk about different segments of the market, different types of bags, different materials, different limited editions, different trends, and we also give you predictions for the future. So, without further ado, let's get into this BagWorld Index report. And James here was a wonderful contributor, and he's going to be going along for the ride with us here and introducing this to all of you wonderful subscribers. The report itself is a whopper. We've been putting this together over the last 2 months or so, and it involves a database that we put together over the last 10 years or so, involving about 160 plus thousand data points that we have all manually entered into this giant database, and then crunched the numbers, and now we can talk about trends for you, or with you. So the first part of our report.
Yeah, it's super exciting. This is a kind of one of a kind, first time kind of report for the Hermès auction market. So
it really is. I'm excited about it. It's sort of taking everything that goes on in our heads and squeezing it out into a nice little financial report for you. Yeah. So part 1 is an introduction, and it's an overview of how the report was put together, a little bit of brand history for Hermès, which I'm sure you know if you're a listener to Bag Talk, and an overview of the auction landscape. James and I have both worked in Hermès auction world in the past. James, how would you say that the auction landscape has changed since you worked in this business directly? When was that?
Directly 2014 to about 2019, I think. So I really got to see the beginning of the explosion, I guess, is kind of the best way I would summarize it. I would say the Hermès auction market has broadened a lot, just by virtue of the fact that time is passing. They're going to add more collections, more things to collect. That'll bring more interest into the market from outside. So I would say that's my biggest takeaway, is just the expansion of the market overall.
Yeah, I agree. You look at one of the graphs that we have in here, which is a graph of the volume and the value of Hermès bags sold at auction. And you can see in the last few years it's gone up quite dramatically, and it rose a lot, of course, between 2020 and 2022. But, back prior to 2017, prior to 2015, prior to Christie's entrance into the market in a big way, the market was much smaller. It consisted of maybe 1,000 bags that were sold at auction a year, and now that number is closer to 2,500. So the market has more than doubled, even in this specific sector, over the last decade or so.
Especially since, this market first got started around 2010, 2011. So it's really crazy how wide and tall this market has gotten in such a short time. It's really a testament to the fact that these items are now assets, and definitely investments.
And that brings us to sort of the reasoning for creating this index and why we wanted to share this information about the market with the world. So the index itself is pegged to 2017, which was the first year that Hermès Mini Kellys came onto the auction market. And that really changed the auction landscape, I think, pretty dramatically. it changed, the categories that you want to look at in terms of pricing, because suddenly this teeny tiny Kelly bag is selling for more than any other size or style. So that was a big sort of market shift. And I think that's a good point to sort of peg the market at and set that as the starting point. And then we wanted to, of course, adjust for inflation, because if you've been paying attention lately in the news, inflation has been kind of crazy the last few years. And so even though you're seeing prices
No.
go up, we wanted to know if they were really going up more than the cost of living, and then more than the value of the dollar was going up. So that was very important for us to track as well. And I think that gives us a really good benchmark. And the index, it's pegged to 100, and depending on whether or not it's above or below 100, that's going to tell you whether or not, Birkins or Kellys, this market has been a good investment since 2017, and to what extent. And that sort of leads us to why we wanted to also do our 4 sub indices: the leather index, the limited edition index, the crocodile and alligator index, and the Himalayan index, because these are all sort of different distinct categories with different price points that I think can be tracked individually, and can definitely, that definitely helps collectors and investors decide what types of bags to buy and how much to spend on them and how aggressively to pursue them at auction. What do you think about these different categories and how interest in them has changed over the years, and how the value has changed? Because we can see the one index that's down since 2017 and has been every year is the crocodile and alligator index. And that's the kind of thing where the value of those bags, the real value, seems to go down by about 15% a year. Every year it's at about 85 or so, and it's pretty stable at that number. Versus something like leather bags, which have pretty stably been a good investment. In fact, they've never been a bad investment, according to this index, but the number varies from, we started at 100 in 2017. 2021 was the best investment year for those. If you're selling, you're probably making out at about a 40% increase. And this is all taking place on the secondary market. We're not comparing these to retail prices. So we're not talking about that first flip out of the store, which is obviously where people can make the most money, in terms of profitability. We're talking about buying and selling on the secondary market, and are these bags actually appreciating in value? So what do you think about these categories, James? And what was your impression seeing how they've changed, and how crazy the HIMA index went in 2020, and even in 2019, it went for a few years and then, came down below the leather index. And now it's, if you're wondering, the HIMA index got up to about 190 in 2020, and now it's down to 108.7. So still a good investment, but let's be real.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a market correction with the HIMAs. I think speed is slowing down. It'll be interesting to see how that pans out long term. Is this the bottom, or will it go back up as trends change? I think it's pretty trend resistant, so I don't really see the last part really having a factor. But the other result I was really surprised by was the exotics, alligator and crocodile. But I also wasn't surprised. I wonder if the kind of anti-exotic sentiment coming from the lower generations is fueling that at all. I'd be interested to know if that was a significant variable in those prices coming down so slowly.
It could. I think in this market, though, the younger generations have less buying power, and so those trends might be less prominent. My guess is that it's the retail prices
that's why
of the exotic bags that might be off-putting. I don't know. That might, in some sense, just prevent people from even considering them.
Yeah, I'm wondering, though, because the price is coming down so slowly and gradually, if it's a generational shift, because those happen a lot slower than market condition shifts generally do. So that's why I'm wondering if the slow gradual decline in exotics over time has anything to do with that shift in generational dynamic.
Yeah. Interesting. I like that. the market correction we saw with the Himalayans, I think, can pretty clearly be attributed to the volume of Himalayans that were sold at auction, which we have a graph for in this report, and it's pretty shocking to see. 2017 through 2021, less than 20 Himas sell at auction annually. 2022, the number almost doubles, and last year, over 40 were sold at auction. So that, pretty much explains the market correction right there. It's saturated. And I think this is one thing that auction houses need to be careful of. We've gotten to a point where every auction has 2 or 3 Himas in it. And I think that's, they're still going for more than any other bags, but, I think we are reaching a saturation point.
Yeah, at the end of the day, handbags are not immune to supply and demand economics.
Yeah, although these new lower prices, because it's pretty standard. I mean, six Himalayans last year, 2023, sold for under 100,000. Every other year since, previously that we've been recording, only one. Back to 2017, only one has sold for under 100,000. And this year, 6. So I think that's going to attract maybe a new level of Hima buyer that might buoy the prices in coming seasons. If you were like, if 6 figures is out of your range, but 70, 80 is possible, you might start to see that tangent of the market, that segment of the market being interested in Himas now.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's the sort of overview and the introduction of the BagWorld Index, which, to reiterate, the whole index is at 100.3, a very slight increase over inflation since 2017. The leather index is currently at 119.2, which is down from the previous year about 6%, but that's still the highest category today. So leather bags are the best investment if you're buying Hermès on the secondary market and retail, frankly. Not that's what we're talking about just yet, but I don't think that that's a huge revelation. But I think the interaction between leather and limited edition bags is interesting because they sort of dance around each other. Mm-hmm. And you would think that limited editions would generally bring more because they're rarer. But I think there's a huge segment of the market that's, the first Birkin segment, that's really driving the high prices of leather bags, of new store fresh basic leather bags. What do you think about this? Like the difference between limited editions and sort of regular leather Birkins, and the difference in desirability and therefore value?
Yeah.
James.
Yeah, I think we're going to see the same phenomenon that happened with the Himas. I think it's going to oversaturate in 2024, 2025, just based on what we've been seeing. And I think the classics will probably plateau, but not come back down. Maybe that won't happen, just because there's perennial interest in those basics. And I think we'll see that play out.
Yeah, I mean, I predict that the store fresh basics will continue to creep up. And I think, a lot of the reason that we see this up and down around limited editions and leathers, when we look at the annual averages, it goes back and forth. I think a lot of that comes from which limited editions are new this year, because those are going to bring top dollars and affect that average, and how many of the limited editions from 2 years ago are now flooding the market and draining those prices. Because the limited edition, that's everything from a candy Birkin for $10,000 up to a rock Birkin for $70,000. And your leather bags, it's a bit of a tighter range. You're looking at some store fresh ones that bring 45, which some do every year, and leather ones that go for 6 or 7 as well. So
yeah, I think limited editions can be somewhat of a speculative market also, which is kind of exciting, but also you have to be careful which limited editions you buy into. And
definitely.
At what time. Usually right at the beginning, you're pretty safe.
If you look at this article we just published called The Limited Lifespan, I think something like that, limited edition lifespan, we look at a number of the recent limited editions from the last few years, and the auction results are so clear and correlated. They go down for the first few years. the
Yeah.
first results are the
Yeah. And if
highest,
you
and then
listen to
that's
our
it.
last Yeah, and if you listen to our last podcast episode, you know there are a lot of limited editions out there. So we have a lot of data on this particular
Yeah,
market dynamic.
definitely. um, so one thing that we look at, and the way that we break down the data, is we break it down by material and size and color. And when we're looking at leather bags, we break it down by color category so we can get an idea for color trends and what colors people are paying the most for. What are they valuing? And I think this is one of the most interesting charts, is the color chart, because year over year, the values of these color categories, just totally shuffle. And the only constant is that pink's on top,
Mhm.
basically.
Yep.
But even brown, which up until
Yeah, that
2020
was
was
my
the
big
lowest
takeaway.
averaging color of them all, is now in fourth place for 2023, behind white,
Mhm.
gray, and pink. Incredible.
Yeah, which
Mm-hmm.
shows you something. I think pink. The interesting thing about pink was, Barbiecore had such a big um, explosion last year, but even before then, you see this market dynamic. So pink is like, I guess it's not odd that it's on top, but it's interesting that it's consistently on top no matter
Yeah.
what happens. Because it's not a classic color by any stretch, but it's, I guess, a perennial
And
color.
most of Hermès's pinks are good pinks. They don't have many bad pinks.
Yeah.
If you're interested, the lowest averaging colors last year were red and purple. Yeah.
I'm not surprised by
Mm-hmm.
purple at all, to be honest.
Red a little bit, mainly because of the Chinese market.
Yeah. But again, that's very like on the nose, I think. There's a limited, even in the Chinese market, I think there's somewhat of a limitation to that demand. Yeah.
Fair enough.
When we break leather bags down by style, and these are just regular leather bags, not limited editions, and when we say limited editions, we're including horseshoe stamp custom order bags in that category. But when we're looking at leather bags by style, one of the most fascinating factoids that I stumbled on was that leather Kelly pochettes are averaging 2023 and 2022, 2 years running. They're averaging more than leather Birkins. That's crazy. This $6,000
It
cosmetics
is
case of
wild.
a bag.
Especially from where they came from.
In like 2014 to 2017, 2019.
It's the
Wow.
mini mania. This is the craze for the
Yeah.
mini Kellys seeping into the Kelly pochettes. And it's here to stay.
Yeah, I wonder if we'll see this change as big bags come back slowly.
It's
but
possible.
surely.
Yeah, I think people do like mini Kellys, or rather Kelly pochettes, because they do hold a bit more. And a lot of people have figured out ways to like hack a strap on there. Yeah.
Right.
Kelly cuts have not quite caught up though, which I think is interesting. Kelly cuts are still, leather ones average like 10,000. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And unsurprisingly, on average, Kellys, bring more than Birkins, but that's mainly due to mini Kellys not really having a Birkin equivalent.
Yeah.
When we look at them by size, of course, it's no surprise that smaller ones bring the most. But it's interesting that 40s and 35s and 32s are pretty much equal. And I think that 32s and 35s, and maybe even 40s, like that whole group is poised to come up in the next few years because they're averaging retail in a market where you can't get them retail. And if that size comes into trend, like, there you go. Equation over. Solution found.
Yeah. This is why positioning is so important for luxury brands, and this is why I'm not surprised by price increases all the time. And, supply quota decreases over time because they're positioning themselves perfectly for this kind of price surge.
And, Birkin 30s and Kelly 28s average pretty similar as well. They sort of dance around each other. Leather, you're talking in that 15 to 20 range. And I think that's really the midpoint that small bags will head towards and big bags will head towards. Because that's, I think, a nice, healthy, like, 5K over retail for most sizes. And I think that's something that the market can sustain. Triple retail for everything is not sustainable.
Not
No,
long term,
no.
at least.
I mean, I remember back in the day, like, if you had a dealer that you sold things to, it was pretty standard. You just get like 1 or 2 thousand over your receipt.
Yeah.
And they're not paying for your bait.
Yeah, this is what I meant earlier about the market expansion. It's just like everything has become
Yeah.
more inflated.
And now some people are like,
overall.
what's the point if I can't make $10,000 in profit?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is market entropy right here.
So I thought that was very interesting. And when we go to other materials too, which are obviously less prevalent, we talk about ostrich, which, has generally been trending downward. I think people have noticed. But Birkin 25s, unsurprisingly, have shot upwards and since 2019. And I think that's because they really weren't making a lot of ostrich Birkin 25s prior to 2019, and it became a thing that started coming out in stores, and you started seeing new colors, and I think that really did drive the prices of them up a lot, even for older models.
Yeah. They're also more difficult to preserve. So I think that definitely has an effect on the value. Like,
Crocodile and alligator are much more durable. And I think most people in the Hermès market,
at least these days, are like, use the bag a couple of times, then resell it at this point.
Yeah, unless you're a collect and
I think
keep
that's
kind of
amazing.
collector.
Right. Which I would argue is a smaller and smaller subset of the overall market.
I don't know. I'd argue against
just
that,
from how
actually.
wide the market has gotten. Okay, let's hear
Well,
it.
I just think, if we're looking at the volume of this market, 2,500 bags sold at auction a year. Hermès is producing at least 100,000 Birkins and Kellys a year, meaning there's a few million on the market, and only 2,500 are selling at auction every year. People are keeping their bags.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of the
Unless
bags
it's
that I've been
finding
seeing
its
in
way
collections
into the
too,
resale
like
market.
people are saying, yeah, I bought this like 20 years ago or 10 years ago. And, I think people do hold on to their bags a lot longer these days.
Yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
They like to hold and speculate as opposed to actually play and lose. Right.
Yeah. That's fair. I wonder how the dealer market affects the auction market overall and like demand there, because it seems to be the same subset of clients.
I mean, I think dealers can look long term, dealers that have been around for a long time and can see when prices are going down and say, this is now when I should be buying more aggressively. As opposed to when prices are high, you really do have to buy pointedly. Mm-hmm. And then that can also help to buoy, a down market. More underbids means higher results. And dealers provide a lot of underbids at auction.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at the crocodile and alligator bags, we split it by finish in one of the graphs, and we look at matte versus shiny. And that's one of the clearest trends that we uncover, is how matte has become the dominant, just priority finish for exotics, and shiny hasn't. They were about equal in 2017 and 2018, and then they just split, and matte has been getting more and more popular and valuable year over year. Why do you think that is, James?
I think probably for the same reason that leathers are
Generally more popular and growing, while exotics generally are not. I think it's an aesthetic thing. I think it's
kind of the end of minimalism.
and shiny is just a little too opulent. I wonder if shiny is going to come back
In
as this kind of market shifts again, going into 2024 and 2025. I'm not sure at this point. I doubt it, but
it might be interesting as
minimalism kind of fades away. Will it come back?
Yeah,
Price
I agree, because it's very glam. And
Yeah.
that can, I've seen
It's like the
that
difference
growing.
between minimalism and maximalism.
It's
right
true,
there.
yeah. Matte, alligator, and crocodile is soft and subtle and practical and tactile. and shiny is perfect and scary and beautiful and
Intimidating.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
um yeah, and when you look at the values for crocodile bags, alligator bags, ostrich bags, it pretty much mirrors that for leather when you break it down by style. But looking at the exotic bags, one of the most stable values across the charts are Birkin 30s, which have had just a super stable average of like 40,000 since 2017. And of course, this means when adjusted for inflation that they've gone down in value. But when you look at a line that's just that smooth, it's like, wow, it's cool.
Nothing is happening over here.
Yeah. I know what's going to happen in this market.
Yeah. I think we can predict a trend line.
And yeah, when we look at lizard bags, we break it down ombre, non-ombre, obviously. And last year was a bloodbath for ombre lizard Birkins. 4 of them came to auction, like a solid number, and they all went between 35 and 45K.
Yeah.
That's pretty
Very
low.
disappointing results, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think people are going to hold on to those and not put them in auction if they don't have to, and hope that market rebounds. Because those are rare. The volume of those has never really, like 4 in a year was shocking, but there's never been a ton of them coming to auction in 1 year.
Right.
And, ombre lizard, you see Constances, you see Kelly Pochettes. The value for those can be quite variable. Most of the Constances are pretty standard these days in the 30,000 range. But the ombre lizard Kellys we haven't seen at auction for a few years. So I think, maybe some collectors already started to think I should hold on to this. Now it's not the time. And I think more collectors are going to think that with their Hermès, too.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah. I like lizard as a material, as an exotic. I think it's my favorite. It's very rare. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It looks like pave gemstones.
Yeah, it really does. I think it's the same as shiny crocodile and alligator here, though. It's a little scary, a little intimidating, especially for people who are kind of delving into the leather market. And I don't know, matte a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, matte lizard's very rare. I just saw a matte lizard
Yes.
Birkin, which was really cool. I would actually say matte lizard is more prone to discoloration than shiny lizard, is my guess. Unless you're talking like fuchsia or parchment. But if you're talking like a black...
Something that can hide it.
Right, yeah, or like a brown, a dark brown. I don't know. Matte lizard's very rare. If you see it, get it. That's my advice.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. We also look at diamond bags in this report. Diamond Birkins, diamond Kellys, diamond Hermès separately. And I've been hearing a lot of chatter lately that there's been a fair amount of demand for diamond bags. Yeah, I heard about some baguette diamond encrusted Constances. And those prices, my goodness. My goodness.
Incredible.
Yeah, I think the retail on those is like $680. Yeah.
I believe it.
But, at auction, diamond Birkins and Kellys tend to be the exception to the rule that they go for more than retail. Because retail on these is crazy. It's like, what, $250 or something? For a full-size guy? I think a diamond mini Kelly's like $160, $180, something like that. $200, $215. I don't know. Don't quote me. And they average these days $130 at auction. That's gone to $200 in the past, but it's pretty variable. And they're still going for more. There's not just like, the diamonds add no value. Like, they definitely add 50 to 100K to the value of the bag. What do you think of diamond Birkins, diamond Kellys, in terms of the vibes, the value?
Yeah, it surprises me the value, to be honest. You would think because of the rarity and it, at least in appearances, seems to be the top of the market, right? Like the most exclusive, most
Extravagant.
bag that you could buy.
The prices don't seem to reflect that, to be honest.
So it's kind of interesting seeing this.
Change based on where
prices were like 5 years ago. It's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. I feel like a diamond Birkin's the kind of thing where, like, if you were asking for that at Hermès, you might actually get it because the market
Yeah.
for those at the retail price is pretty thin. And that's why they go for so much less on the secondary market. Diamond Himas can be the exception, but it depends. It really depends. They average a little more than 300K at auction right now. But privately they can go 500 plus.
Yeah.
Depending. Yeah. Faubourg Birkins are interesting too. You can sort of see they're all converging around the same price when you look at our graph. They're all converging right around 200K. And I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That makes complete sense, honestly.
yeah. I bet that disco one that they teased, if that makes it out, that will go for less. There's just so much less going on.
Yeah.
I bet that will be like the Rock
agree.
Birkin. It might go for like 60, maybe 80 at first, but then probably like 45, 55 in a few years.
Yeah.
That's my guess. We also look at Soblacks, which are one of my favorite limited editions to track. The value of exotic Soblacks just plummeted over the last few years. And I think people are going to hold back selling theirs for a while now.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's
A little bit oversaturated at this point.
Yeah.
Similar to the Himalayans.
The leather market's been strong. Pretty strong, yeah. I've seen some high results, but again, it all depends. Like, it's the full set ones that do best. Box, dust bag, tissue paper, felt, booklet, ribbon, all black.
Yeah.
Gotta have it
Yeah,
all.
that definitely signals that it's a true collector's item. People aren't really buying these to use them; they're buying them to collect them.
Yeah, exactly.
the So Black specifically, I mean.
And sometimes to use them.
that makes me nervous more than
Shiny crocodile gator.
Let's
The
see.
PVD hardware.
I know that PVD hardware. I mean, just don't scratch it. Just don't scratch it.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
Easy.
Kelly
Especially
dolls have
when
been
they do
interesting too. There were some crocodile ones this year, and like I think the divide between a custom horseshoe stamp alligator Kelly doll and a limited edition alligator Kelly doll is now very distinct, and it's about $100,000 difference, if you ask me.
yeah.
The
Yeah,
really
it's kinda
brightly
wild.
colored ones, there's demand. Every time they show up, they go high. And what limited edition ones have you seen? I mean, there's that blue Nui one. I think they did a blue Zalige, a matte blue Zalige that was limited. That's a brighter color, though. I'd be interested to see what that would bring.
Yeah, I could see it going pretty well. I think brights overall tend to be pretty attractive to the auction market. Brights and the classic neutrals.
Yeah, especially when it comes to Kelly dolls.
hmm
Yeah, but the value for the classic first edition ones is still climbing. They're averaging 50K at auction, which is
Yeah,
fascinating.
I'm not surprised. It'll be interesting to see if
The Kelly doll is susceptible to the same.
kind of oversaturation. I don't think so, just because each one is so different.
You can
I don't
collect
know,
a
it's
lot
kind
of them.
like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
for Pokemon, you could collect them all.
Right, once you have one, like,
It's
you're
almost-
not done.
Yeah, we can see where this tops out, but I would suspect it has some room to grow still.
Yeah. Because I remember when they were going for 20K, people were like, oh my god. And then they were going for 30K, and it was like, this must be a bubble. But now they're just literally going for 50K.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Picnic bags are a very interesting graph because 2017 takes us back before the mini picnics. And before the mini picnics came out, full-size picnic Kellys were averaging like 65K at auction. And now they're averaging like 36K at auction, about half
Yeah.
that. And, you know, that tells you like when the mini Teddy Kellys came out this year, and they haven't come to auction yet. What's that going to do to the prices of the full-size Teddy Kellys? You can see exactly what's going to happen here. So that's one of the most like dramatic graphs, I think. And the picnic Birkins and the
Very
picnic
scary.
Kellys are going for the same amount, the mini size, which I think is pretty interesting. It didn't take long for those to reach parity.
Yeah. Yeah, I think if you have picnic Kellys in your closet, hold on to them for a little while.
Yeah, the big ones, definitely. Like, now's not
Yes.
the time. Um, but the most valuable picnic Kellys, the mini ones, are blue. When we crunch the numbers
Yeah.
by color, blue broom and blue de Nord average the highest,
Yeah.
which I think is interesting. But the bright colors, like we were talking about, jaune de Naples, rouge de Coeur, average the least.
Mm. Rouge de Coeur does not surprise me, but I would have thought the pink ones would have gone for something.
Right. Well, framboise is the closest pink, right? And that's fourth
Right.
place.
Yeah.
That takes fourth place. So
Yeah, couldn't make
that
first
one's up
though
there.
if you ain't first or last.
Yeah. But yeah, the Verone, the menthe, white,
Mhm.
jaune de Naples, and rouge de Coeur are all down at the bottom of the chart, which I think is
Yeah.
interesting. And it's more the Bourgogne, the gold, the Rousselier, the Nata, but then of course the top, blue, interestingly. Because in the color
Yeah.
chart, blue is not the most popular. It's going up in the rankings, but it has been a sort of languishing color for a few years.
Mhm.
Yeah. We look at a ton of different limited editions and just compare them based on average value, which is pretty interesting. And if you look at these and you're looking at like what years, you can see, you know, that the older ones are going for less. And it's a rare older limited edition that averages strongly over time, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
One of my favorite and James's favorite parts of this report is when we talk about the 100 most significant auction results of the year. And I just think this is fascinating because we talk about highs, lows, records, interesting bags, and yeah, we've probably talked about a lot of these bags on the pod before, and we're not going to drag you through 100 results on this episode. You'll have to subscribe and read the report. But I thought that was a really fun section to put together.
Yeah, it's like the highlight reel for the year.
Yeah,
It's really, really nice to see.
yeah. But I think one of the most interesting parts of this report for people interested in selling is part 6, where we compare auction houses and their sales performance broken down by materials like leather, crocodile, limited editions, Hermès, things like that, and the volume of bags that they've sold over the years. And this reveals some very interesting trends, which you're going to have to subscribe to read about, because there's one auction house that comes out on top in every category. And you're just going to have to subscribe to figure out which one it is. And we discuss why it might be and why that might change in the future. And I thought this was just fascinating to look at because I wasn't expecting one auction house to consistently get higher average results than the others. But
Yeah,
that's what the data shows.
yeah, definitely subscribe because it's a really interesting stat.
Yeah. We also have a wonderful section here about authentication and the future of authentication. And James, why don't you talk a little bit about that section of the report and, you know, give our readers a little bit of a authentication journey.
Well, I'm not going to spill the beans here, but the authentication report really goes through the as it stands authentication with Hermes and the difficulties and effects it might have on the overall market. It also goes into a little bit of speculation, looking at what brands are doing to secure their authenticity from the boutique side and how that's going to shape kind of the future of the market. So it's a nice little overview. I really loved putting it together, so I hope you guys enjoy it.
Oh, good. Yeah, I thought that was fascinating to read. I learned a lot. You know, James is one of the most knowledgeable people about authentication in this business, and his insights, I think, are totally invaluable. And that's one of the most important sections in this in terms of the future predictions. One other thing we did is we went through Purse Forum and collected data on retail prices that had been reported for Hermès bags throughout the years. So we could track those and see how they've increased compared with how the resale prices have increased. The retail price for a Togo Birkin 25 has not kept up with inflation. So today it's actually cheaper to buy at retail than it was in 2017 if your purchasing power has increased, in line with inflation, of course.
Yeah, the unit price has gone down, guys.
I know. They're really not raising their prices that much, which when you compare it to
Yeah.
Chanel, like that is way beyond inflation, their prices. Oh my God.
Yeah.
But yeah, in 2017, Togo Birkin 25 in the US, about 9,400. Today it's about 11,400. But $9,400 in 2017 today is worth about $11,800. So you got about a $400 discount today, if you think about it that way.
Girl math.
Yeah, girl math. But another interesting chart that we have where we compared the average price specifically at auction of a black regular leather Birkin with gold hardware. We compared that to inflation, to the value of gold, and to the S&P 500 since 2017. And guess what? A Birkin is not a better investment than the S&P 500 or than gold. Okay, you buy your black Birkin with gold hardware, it's not going to appreciate as much as those things. It's just not.
Yeah, fact check.
It's going to appreciate more than inflation, and you're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but don't kid yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard a lot of news stories about this a few years
away.
ago. Yeah.
It started to get very crypto-y for a second. The claims that were being made about the values.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there was this chart that circulated. The power of an infographic, my goodness. And when you look at our chart, you'll see actually 2018, yes, a Birkin was a stronger investment than gold or the S&P 500. But the next year it wasn't, and it hasn't been since, so
the market was like,
you got to keep these things updated. Yeah. That's why you got to subscribe and get this updated every 6 months, because these things can change.
Yeah, you really have to look at the data, and we pull a lot of auction data, so you're in safe hands with our research.
Yeah. So that about does it. We make some final predictions at the end, which you'll have to subscribe to read, and we give all of our wonderful, descriptions of how we made our graphs and all of the auctions that we pulled data from, a little about, all the sorts of details that you would want to know about in this report. And I think it's just going to really change the way people look at this market. And I hope that you've all enjoyed listening to us go over it and talk about it.
Yeah, it's an incredible report, and I'm so excited that we're releasing it now.
I am too. It was such a marathon to create once the 2023 auction season ended, to update the last bits of new data, crunch all the numbers, create all the graphs, think, write. And now we get to share it. Thanks for listening, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the episode.
You can find BagTalk clips and more fun stuff on our TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. So find us over there, and we'll catch all you handbag girlies next week. Bye!
Bye!